I'm Stefan Baumann. I would like to invite you on a special journey. In one of America's most stunning locations, Mount Shasta. Encounter the grandeur. Feel the excitement. Come along with me as we experience the thrill of painting outdoors. A 3-day workshop that will change your art forever. That we are trying to generate a composition with a wall of stuff. Now, it just so happens that your daughter's working on a painting that's very similar to this. Her teacher set up this huge, long table, and on that table there's skulls and pirate booty and shells, mandolins, pear trees, and that's just in her section. And then it goes on to, I don't know, bodies and seashells and pearls and books and silver things. I mean, it's just this long thing. I mean, I give credit for the teacher because I would never do that. But it's like a whole banquet table of just abundanza. And it's layer, layer, layer. Now, oftentimes when we do our homework assignment, I ask you, okay, now go home and paint this. A little glass of water and maybe a saucer or something like that, light it up. But that kind of is a little thought and a little idea on a little canvas. And so the whole idea behind doing this particular homework assignment, in my other classes and also in my mentoring classes, I've had students do this also as a whole. And surprisingly, some of the most beautiful paintings came out of this particular exercise. And that's where, instead of just taking an object and putting it onto a canvas and getting it lit, what we do is we just pile things on top of things on top of things. Now, the whole idea behind this is not to make it look unrealistic or just to pile a bunch of junk. But the whole idea is like, let's just say you were cleaning out your kid's closet and they have a dresser. And all of a sudden you find all of those kids' toys all in a pile there, and you start pushing them up on the dresser, so you'd have like heads of dolls and toys and stuff and all mounted, getting ready for the thrift shop. So if it's a wall of dishes or silver or antiques, some students decided to take on a theme. So some of them would use fishing theme. Some students have used kind of a fantasy theme. Some students used their husband's business as a theme. On all this stuff, and just literally just piled on top of pile. Now, how do you set something up like that? The thing that you want to do is come up with a theme and then find everything that you possibly can and throw it into the box. Now, Judy was asking me today about setting up composition. And this is a little bit about a composition class. And when you're setting up a composition, it's difficult to foresee what that will be. I mean, the main thing about setting up a composition is to set up something that has a theme or an idea that follows some kind of rules. Now, you can follow, there's books on setting up a composition, and some of those books will tell you to use an L composition. And some will say an S composition. Some things will say use an M composition, or a triangle, an A composition, or a C composition, or a B, an H, a Q, an R, maybe an R and an S, or an S, T, P, T, and an R all together. Basically, that doesn't work. Okay, don't think about the alphabet when you're setting up your composition. Best thing you can do is set up your composition in such a way. Now, Judy was asking for a long, narrow canvas. In this homework, we're talking about a wall of stuff. Now, the most important thing when we're setting up a composition, we're thinking about stuff. So like I said, children's toys all piled up on a wall. That's stuff. Books, bunch of books, that's stuff. A fantasy thing or a witchcraft theme, that's all stuff. We don't paint stuff. We don't paint things. We paint effects. So the most important thing is this, and what you do with it. And what's really great about setting up a still life like this, or any still life, is to pile everything in there and don't have any perceived idea of what you want to do. When you start thinking about making an L composition, a C composition, an O composition, and all this stuff, that contrived thing, you end up with something that's vertical and horizontal. But if you throw things in and you rely on your artistic self, which is what we try to teach in our class, you pile everything on and then start moving the light to create something interesting. It's the light that will create what's interesting. And whatever the light falls on, whatever happens to that, if that's more interesting than the things, then you don't have to worry about how you set things up. So if you have a long, narrow canvas like Judy was asking, pile a bunch of stuff that will take up that space, and then play with the light and try to get the light to kind of go through one or two objects and hit one object. Remember, the main thing is that you want to have a center focal point. That center focal point should be the strongest effect in the painting. The strongest effect should be about the size of a silver dollar, because that's all that we would see. In that process, you would have a really good hard edges so that you can keep the viewer focused on that. Anything that's soft, the viewer looks away. So now all of a sudden, we're not thinking about the things anymore. And when you think about setting up a composition that's so contrived, that's based on whatever rules you have on traditional compositions, your paintings start to look all alike. When you're using light as a composition, anything goes. And so you could look at a pile of garbage, and just by the way that you'll highlight a can and a paper, could change that whole pile of garbage into just wallpaper for something that looks really interesting, instead of objects. So this homework assignment here was to just take objects that just filled up the surface and just would go on. Now, what's great about Pearl's homework assignment, her teacher, is that she gave them a banquet table. So on that banquet table, it literally is just piled on every foot. There's a whole nother theme, and they all lock into each other, and everything combines, and pearls and stuff all tied all together and stuff. So the artist doesn't have a chance to paint the whole thing. They just have to kind of look at it and choose something on that big, loud table that they can kind of quasi-focus in on it. The students who have done this homework assignment, I have felt, did some of the strongest paintings that I've seen out of all the homework assignments. Which leads me to believe that actually a still life painting of an object isolated amongst other stuff is actually a better still life painting than a painting that's kind of forced into a compositional form. So Judy, to get to your question, is whatever you're going to do, just load up that space with stuff and then work with light and shadow. And that's just sitting plain. And when you're working with light and shadow, move things around. See how you can get the light to cast a shadow, or, you know, if you're using, let's say, apples and oranges, and you've got some branches and some leaves, see if you can get cast shadows and stuff happening. Because that's really much more interesting than a staged composition. So what were you thinking? Shadow, the feeling of a light. Like your center focal point, you said it's like the paper towels, that's the whitest thing. But all you're emphasizing there is the paper towels, which are a thing. Yes, it's the lightest thing, but it's not the area of light that's in it. What's missing in this painting is it's a painting of things. So What's missing in this painting is that she really should give us the feeling that there's like a morning glow hitting the palette. And I'm bringing this in tighter and tighter. As tight as I can go. So what we have here is we have the light coming in. Half the paper towel is lit. See how this is transition? How the top part is in shadow, the bottom part's lit. This is lit, the table's lit. The feeling of that gives us a sense of like, that's where the light works. So what you ended up with is a painting of things. And that's what I wanted to tell you about setting up a still life, is that you could just throw things in chaos. In fact, I invite you to do chaos. And then just bring the light in to say, here, out of all this chaos, here's an island. And don't look at anything else. Just here. And everything else doesn't matter anymore if you've got the viewer's attention. And when you can see that light coming in, the transition from the shadow to the dark to the light, half the palette lit up, the other half in dark. Makes you wonder what? You have a window over here. It makes you feel like it's a Vermeer coming through, and it's all about that light being pushed into your painting. It's always that. And wherever the stuff is, it doesn't matter. So Judy set up a long tray, piled stuff on it, and then work the light till something interests you. And the thing is, oftentimes you could say, I want this. Now, I chose the paper towel because she chose it. She said, oh, the paper towel. Okay, let's make the paper towel be part of the thing. And then, if we bring that kind of light in here, how cool it would have been to have a cast shadow of that paper against there too. So we would have had a cast shadow from that onto there because the light's coming in from the outside. With that light in there, we could silhouette this dark object in front of it so that the light looks like it's going in between the objects and doesn't hit the front object here. So that creates a more interesting tension. Marilyn, what were you thinking? Yeah. So where do you think she went wrong on this? I shouldn't say wrong. What do you think is missing in this, in her way of going about this?
Working from reality.
Yeah. Yeah, you really need to kind of set up a still life and paint it. I mean, one of the reasons why I have people do this is because from the very beginning in my classes, I have students sit and paint a glass of water. Why? Because most artists haven't even sat down and painted something from life. Didn't you do the glass of water? Yeah. And then what was your second painting you did? Eggs. Eggs.
Donuts.
No, didn't you do the eggs?
Oh, eggs.
Eggs, that's second. Donuts were a third. But I go through that process for students to learn how to paint. I mean, part of my thing is that they call up. I saw her daughter painting. I didn't see her. So I want to know if she can paint. So here's a glass of water. Paint it. And lo and behold, she did good. And I go, okay, well, that's a fluke. Let's try something a little harder. And then ultimately, we do donuts. And after that, we go off into other things. So the whole point, Cups, yeah.
Fixation with kitchens.
With kitchen stuff. Well, we haven't gone in the bathroom yet.
Please don't.
Part of this is for your training to sit in front of something and just paint it and work with lights and shadows. That's kind of like, you're a music teacher, right? So when a student comes in and goes, I want to play, let's hear it for the boys on the piano. You're going to go, yeah, but let's just study scales for a bit and get book handed, or you da 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 da, because if they get their fingers exercises and all this stuff, they can eventually play Mozart. But you don't go in playing Mozart immediately, even though they might have a fanciful and they play by ear. And when students come in wanting art piano lessons, And they go, well, I never read music. I play everything by ear. Your head immediately explodes, like, oh God, what am I going to do with this one? Because you know there's just so much being hidden in all that. I know, but that's just kind of why I give those homework assignments out. Like I said, your artwork is really whimsical and it's absolutely wonderful. But I also wonder if you actually set up a still life and worked with a lighting effect and actually painted what you saw, what would be there for you if you did that? You've done it a few times and it was extraordinary. The problem is you're too artistic for your own good. You can play music by ear. You can paint from your imagination. People would give their eye teeth to be able to paint, and I don't want to change you. I just want to offer something else for you when you paint something. It's just try to just set it up and do it. Yeah.
It's been very interesting for me to experience the homework assignment as something that other people will buy. I've sold more homework assignments than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
The water glass, the egg, the light bulbs are going to be sold in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
it's just...
I have one student, they're going through some little financial issues. And this student really painted a lot of romantic scenes. Beautiful women coming out of the bathtubs and all of this stuff. Really great painter. And then I had him start to paint eggs and these things, right? He says it's interesting because now all of a sudden he realizes that he needs to kind of catch up with a little bit of cash here and there. And so he started offering his paintings there, and everybody's picking through all of these homework assignments. These avant-garde, nothing paintings. I mean, who wants a painting of a roll of toilet paper? But how that toilet paper is painted makes all the difference. Your glass of water, your egg painting, your donut painting, your all these. People really can identify with them because we're getting into the nuances of really what it's like, what people like. You know, we think everybody wants a calendar picture, but they don't. Because there's calendar pictures everywhere as you walk through life. This park out here is beautiful. You know? Yeah, go ahead and paint some trees and rocks and be fine. But if you capture something, the essence of light hitting something in such a way, they buy it. And it doesn't even matter. It could be an egg or a glass of water. They buy it. They like that because it's the effect they're buying. And that's why it's so important for me to emphasize the effect, not the things. Just like when we did your painting with the paper towels. It was nice. But you get that light in there and it's like, whoa, and then all of a sudden you see more possibilities.